Hello everybody, today we're going to be talking about a subject that's personal to me, Tourette syndrome. Tourette syndrome is a neurological disorder characterized by involuntary sounds and movements known as tics. The CDC estimates that 0.6% of the population has it, and it's more commonly diagnosed in boys than in girls. These tics vary in intensity from person to person, and they tend to lessen with age. Now, as someone who has Tourette's, I can tell you, it's a pain to deal with. Sometimes I feel like I can't do a certain action until I've completed a tic, and it makes it hard to start talking. And it's not something I can easily suppress either. I have to actively focus on not doing the thing that my brain is screaming at me to do. Fortunately, my tics are a lot milder than they were when I was younger, but like I said, sometimes they're a pain. But you know what's an even bigger pain? The way people talk about it. Portrayal of Tourette's in media tends to be less than stellar. A lot of it focuses on coprolalia, or compulsive swearing. I'm sure we've all seen this South Park episode. If you haven't, here's a synopsis: the kid yells swear words. Now, South Park doesn't try to portray anything with sensitivity, so they get some kind of a pass. No one expects a lot of positive representation from a shock humor show. The problem is that the people who should do better often don't. The most personal example of this for me is ABC's show My Extreme Affliction. As the name implies, the show tends towards sensationalism. They did a special on Tourette syndrome back in July 2008, and they interviewed me for it. The segment aired alone before it went on the 2020 show, and I wasn't featured, probably because my affliction wasn't extreme enough. Now, shocker, the 11-year-old content was kinda hard to track down. I eventually managed to find it under the name Teens Take on Tourette's. Here are some choice clips.
A disorder that has made these kids strangers in their own bodies. Sometimes it seems Isabella's resilience and her parents' patience are the only things keeping this family from being torn apart by Tourette's. The summer stillness erupts in an odd symphony. Grunts, squeaks, and screams.
Ugh, great portrayal, huh? Definitely not exhibitionist or, outright dehumanizing with all those animal comparisons. Back when this first aired, my mom taped it, and then she taped over it because she didn't want me seeing it at that age, and I can't say I blame her. Oh, and of course it was split into 6 parts that wouldn't link together for minimum accessibility, but that's more a problem with the 2020 website's video software. The point here is, even if they were trying to do good coverage, they didn't. They pursued shock value instead of truth and used over-the-top phrasing to do it. I mean, strangers in their own bodies? That sounds like something out of a budget exorcism flick, not the news. And this isn't just a one-station problem either. From CBS just last December, here's 2 parents talking about their daughter. She has an extreme version of Tourette's, and the context for this clip is that she's knocked holes in the walls as a result of her tics.
Straight through the tiles. Straight through the tiles. Looks like you've had a poltergeist through. Considered an exorcism.
Yeah, we have discussed that.
I understand that parents vent about their kids, but it's irresponsible to say things like that in front of a camera. Imagine being a kid with Tourette syndrome, tuning into the news, and hearing that. Now, that isn't to say that all Tourette's coverage is this awful. The point is that none of it should be of such low quality on the news. More recent coverage from ABC has been mixed. I put the word Tourette's into the website's search bar, sorted by most recent, and some of the coverage was markedly less disappointing than the rest. On one hand, we have a nice 2017 article about a Muslim basketball player with Tourette syndrome. The use of language is pretty good, it doesn't dehumanize him or frame his disability as some horrible curse, just a problem that he has to deal with. And that, in my experience, is what having Tourette's is like. It's inconvenient to deal with, but it doesn't define your whole life. On the other hand, here's a clip from 2016 about a governor swearing in a voicemail.
Cut out a few of the beeps there, Matt, but, I call it a different kind of political story. Not the first time it's happened with this governor, though.
No, I mean, he might want to acknowledge some Tourette syndrome or something in that.
We've just heard ABC News political analyst Matthew Dowd casually using my disability as a joke, and conflating all Tourette's with coprolalia. Disappointed does not begin to cover my feelings on this, but in the interest of keeping this podcast family-friendly, we'll leave it at that. These people should know better. Representation matters. People with Tourette syndrome understandably aren't fond of seeing ourselves dehumanized or our condition mocked. And for people without Tourette's, the news is how they learn about it. News media have a responsibility to present Tourette syndrome fairly, just as they would any other topic. Talk about people like they're human beings. Don't exploit their symptoms for ratings. Talk about Tourette's like it's a disability, not a supernatural curse. Journalists can and should do better. And based on what I've seen from the current state of coverage, it's not a high bar to clear.